My midwife, literally, I was like, "You're my rock, you're my rock." I remember once watching a TV show, an American one called The Mindy Project, and they basically like made fun of the midwives, like, "Oh, they're so hippy dippy," and I'm like, really? I didn't know that. I never considered them that. I was just like, is this what the people think of it? I mean, I didn't know, but I was just like, it's so different. It's really so different.
Giving birth is one of the most significant events of your life. Sadly, the joy that you should feel can often be replaced with anxiety and helplessness instead. As a labor and delivery nurse, I'm revealing insider information to educate you, reassure you, and decrease your fear. In this podcast, you'll hear empowering birth stories and experts weigh in on a range of topics. Being Jewish also has me exploring Judaism's influence on the reproductive experience. However, I speak to anyone wishing to navigate their journey with more joy and confidence. I'm your host, Chani Fingerer, and you're listening to the Happy Birthway Podcast. Welcome to episode 41 of the Happy Birthway Podcast. For those of you who celebrated Pesach, Passover, I hope that it was a beautiful one. I am really happy to get back into routine. And firstly, we missed this, but it was the first year anniversary of the Happy Birthway Podcast on April 11th. And although we are going to be celebrating the anniversary a little bit late, I'm really excited to be releasing an episode very soon with the birth story of my fourth baby that my husband and I have not had a chance to do yet. So it is long overdue, as were 3 out of 4 of my pregnancies. And I'm looking really forward to releasing that episode shortly. So stay tuned for that. Secondly, I am really excited to be presenting to you over the next 2 episodes the birth story of Tanya Ohana. It is a lovely birth story with many twists and turns. She lives in the UK, so it's going to be interesting for you to hear the differences if you are living not in the UK, if you're living in the US and Israel and Australia and other countries that you listeners are from. I split her birth story into 2 episodes since it was quite a long story. And so stay tuned for part 2 of her story that will be released shortly. Before we begin the interview, I just wanted to let you know that if you have been thinking about joining Yoledet community as a member, then now is as good time as ever because I am jam-packing the next 4 weeks with meetups. We are going to be having a meetup session every single week, including guest appearances by Dr. Alyssa Hellman, by Millie Schwecke, who is a pelvic floor specialist, and by a doula. So along with answering any other topics of interest that you have, they are also going to be appearing. Right now, I am running a 30-day free trial special. However, in a few weeks, it is no longer going to be offered. And so I highly encourage you to jump on that offer. And furthermore, I am very soon doing another workshop on a topic that I will not announce at this time yet, but one that is extremely important and that I've seen a huge need for, both from the members of the Yoledet community and from Yoledet Academy followers in general. This workshop will be offered at a great discount to Yoledet community members. So once again, now is a great time to join Yoledet community, and you will find the link for Yoledet community membership in the episode show notes. One more thing before we start, I wanted to let you know that the Happy Birthway Podcast is currently accepting collaborations and sponsorships for ad pre-rolls, mid-rolls, post-rolls. And so if you are a pregnancy, maternity, birth, and baby-based business and you would like to get the word out about what services you offer, then please email me at chani@yoledetacademy.com and let me know about what you do, what your brand stands for, what product or service you are offering, and if I feel like it is a good fit, I can get your product or service out to those that might really benefit from it. And without further ado, I introduce to you Tanya Ohana. Tanya Ohana, who lives in London and is a food blogger and recipe developer, will be telling us how she gave birth in the UK and how that is different from the US. I absolutely love learning about how different birth can be in different countries and the healthcare systems, and it's fascinating, and I think we have so much to learn from each other. She grew up in the Mediterranean, Gibraltar, and that has heavily influenced her cooking style, from using spices to flavor her food to her love of fresh produce and herbs. And along with her food demos and how-tos, Tanya also sells artisanal popcorn in a variety of flavors for both personal and event use. You can follow along her food journey on Instagram at garlic.and.ganache for more easy and wholesome recipes and kitchen tips. I will put that link into the episode show notes so that you can find it easily. Welcome, Tanya, to the Happy Birthway podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here, Connie. I'm very excited.
Yes, it's an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to learn about just your whole birth experience. And babies do come out in the same ways in the UK as they do in the US.
Yeah, same place.
Yeah, I remember when I switched to working from my first hospital that I ever worked at to the second hospital, and I was still, in the training, so I was learning, just learning how things worked a little bit differently in the second hospital. And I let my patient know that, I'm an experienced labor and delivery nurse, but things are a little bit different from hospital to hospital. So I'm just learning this hospital's flow. And I remember the father saying to me, "Oh, but do they come out in the same way?" as a joke. So I love to use that joke. It was a good one.
It's a good one. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. So, but the prenatal care is vastly different. I think attitudes around prenatal care, obstetric care, labor and delivery care, women's health in general are different. And I would love to hear about, just from start to finish, what your experiences have been, the highlights of your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum, which is so important as well to address. And I think that the UK system has a much better way of taking care of women postpartum. Just before we start, what's your baby's name?
Aurelia.
Aurelia, that's a beautiful name.
Thank you. It means or Le Hashem, so the light from Hashem. She's my little light.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And she's 7 months old, right?
Yes, she is. She's still 7 months old. I hope she's sleeping. I think she's sleeping, but she'll see.
It's okay. We invite babies on the podcast too.
Oh, yeah.
It's part of the experience here because most of the people I'm interviewing are mothers. So I welcome babies if she wakes up. But it's pretty late by you already now, right?
Yeah, it's 7:30. Yeah. So bedtime is 7. Sleeping by 7.
Yeah.
I hope.
Okay, good. Yeah, here's to hoping. Somehow they always sense when you need them to sleep especially much, and then they always just wake up right then, So no problems if she comes and joins us. So Tanya, start from, the beginning. And I just want to ask you, because you do follow me, I would love to hear what you've heard from my stuff, if anything was notable to you as far as differences in what you've seen in the UK health system.
Well, I'll start with that. First of all, I heard about you very soon, into my pregnancy. I was just looking around at stuff, and then I saw you pop up. I don't even remember where, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so useful. And it actually has been it was so useful for me. It literally helped me be my own advocate, because during Corona, the systems, even here, it changed drastically. I wasn't allowed to have my mom there. I just about was allowed to have my husband. And I was I was first time mom. I was really clueless. I was what's supposed to happen? And I remember you, from the beginning, were going on about being, because you were talking about your birth and being your own advocate. And I was so determined to do that. So that really helped me. And just it helped me to know about stuff. I know some things are different. A lot of times, for example, induction, I think you a lot of people in the US know it by the names of the drugs. I didn't even know the names, Pitocin or something. Mm-hmm. I just knew okay, someone gets induced. I don't know what was going on. And the words are a bit different. So I feel if I say the word that we use here. I might not use the right word.
No, that's fine.
Or,
And I've heard
but
of some
yeah,
words, and if neither of us know, that's fine. You can still use the words because
yeah.
people can Google it.
No, no, exactly. And also, like, it was just interesting to know, like, how it works so differently by you guys over us. I mean, like, how you go to, like, obstetrician and, like, throughout it, like, we just see midwives, like, and, like, maybe you see one at the end, an obstetrician, but, like, really, really rarely. So it's very different.
Yeah, and I just need to say about that, correct. Like many European countries, the prenatal care is primarily on a midwife driven model, because most people can have a normal, low risk, regular, uncomplicated pregnancy. Not everyone, but most. And it's, first of all, cost saving, and second of all, it's even more specialized than an OBGYN, because OBGYN's scope is very broad. They have a lot of, gynecological training. They're also surgeons. And so, it's like this in many countries. So yes, it's led primarily by midwives. That's the primary person you're going to go to, care provider, unless there are things that you need to be referred out to. And yeah, there are midwives in the U.S., and I feel like the awareness is growing in the knowledge of how midwives can benefit somebody, midwifery care in the different model. So I do think that that's growing, but it's not the primary not in the very least. So
Yeah, I remember once watching a TV show, an American one called the Mindy Project, and they basically like made fun of the midwives, like, oh, they're so hippy dippy, and I'm like, really? I didn't know that. Like, I never considered them that. I was just like, is this what the people think of it? Like, oh, I mean, I didn't know, but yeah, I was just like, it's so different. It's really so different.
yeah, in the U.S. there is, some of that unfortunately going on with the stereotyping, and I think that it's a
Yeah,
result of really ignorance. It is a sad state, actually, and this just highlights the broken segments of obstetric care in the U.S. It's a much more uniform and universal system in the U.K., where there's the collaborative care, the integration of the obstetric care for women is organized in a very organized way, and that actually improves
yeah,
outcomes because of that, because they're all on the same page, because midwives are required to have relationships with doctors, and that's just the culture, and that's just, OBGYN doctors are trained in that way in the UK. It's a very different outlook. So they know that
yeah,
I've had a resident not long ago not even know what the midwifery training was, which is a big shame. But because doctors are just expected from the outset to be working with midwives, they understand and they know all of that, and hopefully have a little bit more respect for their training, and don't joke about hippy dippy midwives.
No, I don't see it. My midwife, literally, I was like, you're my rock, you're my rock. And I'm like from the Rock of Gibraltar, so I'm like, you're my rock. And so the way it's basically like it goes here, I don't know how it is for you guys, but when you get your positive pregnancy test, you call like your GP practice. Like everyone, like in your area, you're assigned like a GP practice. Part of the NHS is where you go when, like, I don't know, you feel like you want to get antibiotic, you think you have a tonsillitis or something, yeah. So you call them and they put you down like on the register. They register you as a pregnancy, and then you get contacted by your local midwifery team. Like every area has like a local midwifery team. So I got contacted by my local midwife, who actually happened to be Jewish, because I live in a really Jewish area. So she was really sweet. So it's what's called community midwives. She's not like, maybe she does do shifts like in the hospital, but her work is primarily like in like antenatal and postnatal appointments. So she's like, okay, ask me 100 questions. Also, this stuff is usually done, as I know, was I've been told, sorry, but in person during like, but pre-COVID. But during COVID, I was pregnant and this was like November 2020. So
At the height of the Delta
December,
variant,
November,
yeah.
yeah, basically 2020. Not, yeah. So they did everything on the phone, ask you your medical history and all that stuff, and then she registers you with like the local hospital. So and like your pregnancy is known to them, and they'll send you a letter in the post saying like when your first scan is. And here scans, there are two main scans, 12 weeks and 20 weeks.
So I'm curious, besides for all of the, so I guess telehealth visits that you had with your midwife, did she ever come to do like any vital signs or, test your urine or anything like that?
Usually, I think so. But for me, during COVID, until 25 weeks, I didn't see a midwife, which my mom was like appalled. What do you mean? And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, it was a really long time, and I was like, basically just I got seen 12 by the 12 weeks
Scan.
scan, but that's nothing midwifery. It's just like you call it sonogram, don't you? We just call it a scan. Ultrasound, we actually call it.
Yeah, it has so many names: ultrasound, sonogram, scan.
Yeah,
It's all interchangeable, and all three are used in the U.S.
but yeah, actually, I'm just remembering. I think at like 8 to 10 weeks at that point, I went to the hospital. I had to give in a urine sample, take my weight and my blood pressure, but that was it. They didn't do anything.
They don't do much else in the U.S. either
Yeah,
at an initial prenatal consult.
yeah,
Did they take any blood work?
yeah. They took. Well, I have this thing in my family where from from my mom's side, something called factor seven deficiency. It's
Mm-hmm.
like a blood clotting factor. So my grandmother actually, unfortunately, passed away in childbirth with her fourth because she just hemorrhaged and hemorrhaged and hemorrhaged. So for that, me, my mom, my sister, my aunt, my cousins were all like higher risk because of the blood clotting factor. Like my sister, my mom have had to have like plasma given to them and like post birth, and like it's just like they're on standby. So they're like factor seven deficient. I have something weird called polymorphic factor seven deficiency, meaning that it comes and it goes. It's very random, very particular. So actually it happened to be that at the time when I had my pregnancy, I didn't have it. So, but they still like were like keeping their eye on me, basically. So they must have so what did happen one time was that I knew I had to have these blood works taken, and I went and I had spoken to a obstetrician on the phone. They normally have face-to-face appointments if you're like on this high risk category, but it was all on the phone. And for like the system, I don't know, it kept telling me that they didn't have any of my family history. So I had like two full consultations with obstetricians being like, we don't have anything on the system. I'm like, I know all this by heart. Da, 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 da. So they told me, we're booking you in to take in bloods. But this was like after 12 weeks, I'd say, and to see if I had the clotting thing. And then I went there and the nurse was like, oh, you're not on the system. I'm like, great. It's like literally, I feel like COVID like messed everything up. But I should remember she was taking one vial, and I've had this done many times. I remember for blood clotting, it's like at least a couple more vials. And I was like, don't you think you need a few more vials? I literally felt so bad. And she was like, oh yeah, you're right. And I'm like, oh my God, I really hope this goes somewhat properly.
Good for you. That's an example of self-advocacy. Ask those questions.
Yeah, basically I was just like, she was like, oh yeah, you're right. And I'm like, okay, I hope it's not your first day, but whatever. And so then you go for the 12-week scan, and they like literally just like, you see it for the first time, and it's like really, really special. You hear the heartbeat.
Were they letting anyone in with you? Like, was your husband able to come with you?
My husband was at that point allowed, and we had to wear masks the whole time. And we weren't allowed to speak for some reason. It was really weird. They were like, don't speak.
It's so interesting. I mean, I can understand like why in a way they would make that rule, and because it's just speaking, you spit little tiny particles of whatever. So
Yeah.
that's so interesting. It's the first time I'm hearing of something like that.
It was, yeah, that was like, I remember it because the 20 weeks is when they like measure everything and see if like there's any, God forbid, abnormalities. And she was also really quiet, and she had a student in there, and they were both staring at the screen. And I was like, heart palpitations, like, oh my gosh, is this something wrong? Is something wrong? Like, she's not saying anything for 20 minutes. I was so scared. And then at the end, she's like, okay, yeah, all looks fine. And then she like shows you on her screen, this, 2 kidneys, this. And I was like, oh my God. I was literally like freaking out. I was like,
Everyone's anxious by the scan, so yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I also didn't mention that I think just before I was due to have my scan at 12 weeks, I actually ended up having it at 13 weeks because when I was 11 weeks, I got COVID, which was not fun.
Oh my gosh, I'll bet.
yeah, suspected that I had COVID, so I called my GP, and they were like, "You're paranoid. You're paranoid." Because I was like, "I have a urine infection. I have COVID. I think I have all of these things," and they're like, "No, you're paranoid." And I was like, I took a test and I was positive, and I was like, "Oh no!" And then after that, I literally felt so fatigued for like months, and I wasn't sure if it was from having COVID or from being pregnant. I don't know. And everyone knew that I had COVID, but nobody knew I was pregnant. And I was really, really, really nauseous. Like, I wouldn't say that I had hyperemesis. My sister had that. That was pretty bad. But for about 5 to 6 months, I was no food. Like, lettuce with vinegar was my favorite food.
What was your
The
food?
only thing I could. Lettuce with apple cider vinegar. That's all I ate.
Like apple cider vinegar sprinkled over lettuce? Oh my gosh, that's hysterical.
I know. I don't know. I remember when I was little and I used to get car sick. I used to have like salt and vinegar crisps or chips, as you guys say. For some reason, that always like settled my car sickness. I don't know what it does, like the acidity. I don't know, like it balances. It doesn't make sense to me because like pH, whatever. But it neutralized something in me.
Well, that's an idea to try. Who knows, you know?
Yeah, apple cider vinegar always works for me whenever I'm nauseous. So yeah, so that was that. And then
Was that
25
hard for
weeks,
you on your food blogging, things that you
oh
do?
yeah, I was MIA. I blamed it on COVID, which was actually quite good timing. I was literally MIA. People, I mean, I remember like about 16. I didn't tell people for a while, like friends, like my family, my friends didn't know because I got away with it because of COVID. Like I
Yeah.
didn't see people, and it was winter, so like coat, whatever it is. Also, I didn't show for a while because I was just so sick, so I didn't really show for ages. And my friend messaged me. She was like, "I'm really worried. Like, are you okay? Like, is there any issues going on? Like, do you have like in yourself, like, emotionally, like mental health issues?" And I was like, "No, I'm really fine." And I got it. She's like, "Oh, because like you're not coming to anything. I don't see you on social media anymore." And I was like, I had to break the news to her then. I was like, no, 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 no. I'm fine. Like, stop
It's for a good
freaking out.
reason.
Yeah. And she was like, oh, you're like, you calmed me. And yeah, but it was hard. Like I really missed it, and I felt like you mentally you think, oh, my stats are going really low because I'm not posting anymore and I'm not
Yeah.
storing, and people are like, where are you? We miss you.
Oh, that terrible rabbit hole. That like, oh yes, I can relate.
Yeah, and then I was just like, no, you know what? It's for a good thing. Some time, like when it happens, I'll be like, guys, remember like 4 months ago I was like totally MIA. You know why now?
Right.
um,
That
yeah.
brings up your
So,
engagement. Oh my gosh, it's such a mind game, the whole thing.
oh, it did. I've never got so many messages as when I posted like, hello. The reason why I've been MIA for 5 to 9 months is it's a girl. And everyone was like, oh my God. And then you're like the most popular person of that day. Literally, it's like the day you get engaged. This is nothing like it's the same thing. But yeah, so I remember for 25 weeks, I went for the first time to the midwife. I was so excited. I came with, like, they give you a pack, like, your maternity notes, like, you take it home. They don't keep it. And you take them every single time you go to an appointment. You have to bring them with you. And every time, like, you take it home. I came with my pack. I was, like, so excited. Some people get, like, packs, like, they get, like, an insert for their pack being, like, oh, Tanya's, like, maternity notes, like, on, like, what's it
Like
called?
personalized?
Yeah, like the very personalized
Bound with
generation that we're in.
leather? We're not.
No, like I don't know, it's like a plasticky situation. But
I was being sarcastic about the bound with leather, but
oh no,
we love to glamorize
nothing.
Europe, so maybe some
Oh
people in
yeah,
the U.S. will believe that.
it's so funny because like speaking of Europe, I really feel like UK is different to like Europe. Europe, obviously, we're part of Europe.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, because I'm from Gibraltar, which is on the continent, and I literally like I grew up like next to Spain, like, and I feel like UK is so different to like continental people. Like I feel like people will be like, no, we're European, like the British, I mean the English people, because I'm British, but I'm not English. It's like a bit complicated. But I do feel like it's still very different. But the NHS, the National Health Service, is the same. It's like the
So now I'm going to expose my geographical complete ignorance and tell you, I'm so embarrassed to admit this. For some reason, I thought that Gibraltar was in South America.
when I was in STEM, everyone was like, that's in Brazil, right? And I'm like, no, we're like literally like the last point in Europe, like literally just before Africa is like a tiny, like you can Google it. It's smaller than Central Park. That's how small it is.
Really?
Like literally tiny. And that's where I grew up for 18 years till I went to SEM. Um, but yeah, it's very small, but we're like, they like to say, British we stay, Spanish we speak all day, because we're like connected to Spain, so we're bilingual. But we're like inherently British. We have the pound, the Queen is our queen, we have the same schooling type of system and the same type of healthcare, like that it's like the national health basically. But in other things we're very different. Like we have the warm weather there. I mean, they have the warm weather. I wish I was there with the warm weather.
Yeah.
Because they're literally right
You
on
guys
on
still have better
the
weather. I mean, okay, the cloudiness, that's not great, but you guys still have better weather in terms of cold temperatures than we do. Like, you'll get a
yeah
powder sprinkling of snow a few times. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but like, we get massive blizzards
yeah.
here.
I know it hasn't snowed this year, and we were like, oh, we've missed the snow. But it sometimes doesn't snow, and it's just like, but it's just rainy, very rainy. But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
I know.
that's London for you. Like I think you expect that. Um, but yeah, so I was really excited for this 25
Week.
week appointment, and I got there, and the midwife was really sweet. She like did like the usuals, like take my blood pressure, take my urine. My blood pressure is always very low. Like I have like particularly low blood pressure. Um, and then she was like, "Hey, we're gonna use this Doppler thing to like um see the heartbeat." And I was like, "Okay, cool." Like I remember hearing the heartbeat in the scans, which was like, "Oh, cute! I can hear it now." And she did it, and she's like, "Okay, did it again." And I was like, maybe this is normal. Like I have no clue. And then she like, "1 second, I'm gonna call in my colleague." And then she brings in the colleague, and she's like, "Do you want to listen to this?" And then I'm like, "Okay." And then she's like, "Okay, I think that there is something up with the heartbeat in that it's like goes like bum 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 bum, like there's a gap."
Yeah, so we call that an arrhythmia.
Yes, that was exactly arrhythmia.
Where the heartbeat is irregular, so it's not a typical rhythm of bum 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 bum. Right, there could be
Yeah,
several beats that are close, and there are different classified arrhythmias and things like that. And again, I don't know exactly what happened with you, so I want to hear. But some
yeah,
people's babies will have an arrhythmia during pregnancy, and they'll come out totally fine with no problems. But of course, it definitely requires further investigation during pregnancy.
yes, that's exactly. So she was like, "Okay, well, I've just like I checked in on a couple of she checked in on a couple of Dopplers, and like she said it wasn't all the time. It was just like every so often it happened." And she checked it with her colleague, and she also detected it. And she's like, "Okay, don't freak out." And I was freaking out because, like, when
Of
they say don't
course,
freak out, you
who
freak out.
wouldn't? Yeah.
Um, so she's like, "I think you should book to go into the local hospital to get seen by the fetal department there." And I was just totally like, I'm like a very like nervous, paranoid person, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm like, okay, like brave face. Yep, thank you. See you. And like they were supposed to see me, I don't know, 5 weeks later or something. And so I go into my car and I start bawling, and I call my husband. I was like, oh my gosh, something's wrong. And he's like, gets more paranoid than me, and he's like, oh my gosh. So I tried to call the hospital. Obviously I couldn't get through to them, and I was just getting really nervous, and I was like building this all up in my head.
So now, when she referred you, she told you that you have to be the one to set up the appointment to call. Like, she didn't send over any referral or anything.
She did. She sent a referral, but she said that to get seen ASAP, you should call and then say what happened, and they'll see you like today, rather than if they put it through the system, by the time they get round to like their calling list, it will be like a couple of days. It was also Thursday. I remember all my midwife points were always Thursday, and I was just like, oh my gosh, if I get seen Friday, it's always like it was a winter. Shabbat's really in early. It's like, and you always end up waiting. So I was really nervous. So my husband was like, you know what? So the system here, we have the national health, but we do have private options too, which you can see. So my husband was like, we were freaking out, so we went to see, it's something called Harley Street. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's like literally like there's the road in central London where all like the private medical practices are. I mean, they have some that are not there, but it's like where the best ones are.
Private medical district. Okay. I just coined that term for it.
Yeah, I like it. So we called up one and we went there. They were like specialized in fetal cardiology or something. Yeah, fetal cardiology. And we went, and the lady there was, oh my gosh, you walk in, you feel it's like so fancy. It's like there's real leather seats, like NHS, like it's amazing and everything, but you don't get that. And they're like, yes, how can we help you, madam? And I was like, oh, okay. It actually did help to calm me because I was literally a bundle of nerves. And she did this like long scan, and she actually like showed us like more in depth than I saw like with a 20-week scan.
You were allowed to talk,
probably because yeah. So she's like, yeah, there is, your midwife did a good job. She like spotted this thing, but she wasn't specialized enough. I think she was just a fetal specialist. I don't know if she was a fetal cardiologist specialist. I went to see that later.
In the States, they're called a maternal fetal medicine specialist. Where,
right.
you know, they specialize in high risk, but it's kind of a general high risk. And then you do have maternal fetal medicine specialists that go on for further fellowship and specialization in maybe a particular area, either in the maternal side or the fetal side.
Right.
You know, let's say in cardiology, and you also have like fetal, like pediatric cardiologists that you can see prior to giving birth that, you know, also have some whatever specialization in even before you give birth to plan things out. So this was an ultrasound. Was it called a fetal echocardiogram by any chance?
No, I did go to that afterwards. This was just like an ultrasound, but like basically her equipment were a bit more high tech than the little Doppler that was being used. And she, first of all, she was like, no, don't worry, it should be fine. But yeah, you should go to see a fetal cardiologist. But in the meantime, she was like, oh, because like whatever, you paid for this session anyway, let's just look at the baby, everything. So she was like, I think the baby's measuring a bit on the small side. And I'm like, anything else today? Anything else? And I'm like, and then she's like, but you know what, you guys are both quite petite, so like don't freak out. And I was just like, is there anything I can do to like make it be bigger? Like maybe I should eat more of this or that. And she's like, no, something got to do with your eating. She said that it could be something that there's issue with your like placenta, and it's just not providing the baby enough food. And I'm like, well, what can I do about that? She's like, not much you can do about it.
Thanks for tuning into the Happy Birthway podcast. Head over to Yoledet Academy on Instagram to continue the conversation. You'll find the link in the episode show notes, as well as links to any additional resources, products, and services mentioned here. If you love listening to this show, you can help it grow by sharing it with your friends and rating and reviewing it. To stay in the loop when new episodes are released, make sure to subscribe. Remember that your health needs are unique and require individualized medical advice. The podcast is not a replacement, and some of the information may not be appropriate for your specific circumstances. My mission is to educate you so that you can confidently collaborate with your healthcare team. I believe that a healthy mom and healthy baby are simply not enough. We also need a happy mom with an empowering birth experience.